Welcome to www.happynumbers.org. Today's lesson is on multiplying a monomial by a monomial. Let's have a quick review. A monomial is an algebraic expression that has one term. Let's take this right here. This is a monomial. It has one term. It has a coefficient. The 3 is the coefficient, and it has a variable, x squared. Negative 4x is a monomial also. It has a coefficient, and the coefficient is the negative 4. It's the coefficient, and it has a variable, x. Now, the rule for multiplying monomials is very simple. We multiply the coefficients. So 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. And we multiply, when we have the variable x squared and x, remember this is x to the first power. We don't write that. So when we're multiplying, we add exponents. So this would be x to the 2 plus 1, which would give us negative 12x to the third. Now remember that this x is really x to the first power. In fact, we have a video already online that is talking about exponents in multiplication when you're multiplying polynomials. Alright, so let's take a look at some examples. Again, a quick review of this concept. It's a very simple concept. When you're multiplying monomials, you multiply the coefficients. 3 times negative 4 gives you negative 12. And then x to the second power plus x to the first power gives us x to the third power, or x cubed. So let's take a look at a couple of problems here, and then we'll give you some to do on your own. Let's take this one. Negative 2a squared b squared times negative 3ab. Again, this is a monomial right here. Has a coefficient and has a variable. This is a monomial, has a coefficient and a variable. When we multiply them, we multiply the coefficients. Negative 2 times negative 3 gives us 6. Negative and a negative gives us a positive. We have a squared b squared and a to the first power b to the first power. So a squared plus a to the first power would give us a to the third power. B squared plus b to the first power gives us b to the third power. So our answer is positive 6a to the third b to the third. Again, remember, the exponent 1 is here, although it is not written. So let's take a look at some other examples here. Let's take a look at this. 4x, sometimes you'll see the problem like this. 2x, this is multiplication. Well, this is a pretty simple problem. We multiply the coefficients. 2 times 4 is 8. And we know we have x to the first and x to the first gives us x squared. If I had a problem like this, 5c times negative 2d, well, I have two monomials here. I have the coefficients, but the variables are different. So I multiply the coefficients. Negative 2 times 5 is negative 10. And then it's just c d. Since these two variables are different, we can't add or anything like that. Good. Pretty simple skill set. I'm going to put some problems up for you to work, then ask you to put the video on pause, let you work them, and then we'll go over them. So let's do 4x to the fourth y times negative 2xz. Let's do negative 3x to the third y squared times negative 2xy. And let's do, well, you do those two first. So put your DVD on pause or put your video on pause, work those problems, and then we'll go over them. Okay, let's take this one, 4x to the fourth y times 2x z. Well, first we multiply the coefficients. 4 times negative 2 gives me negative 8. Now I have x to the fourth and I have x to the first here, so that would give me x to the fifth. I have y to the first and I have no y over here, so it'll just be y. And I have z. So the answer is negative 8x to the fifth y z. Let's take this one. Negative 3x to the third y squared times negative 2xy. Well, I multiply the coefficients first. Negative 3 times negative 2 gives me positive 6. X to the third and x to the first gives me x to the fourth. Y to the second times y to the first gives me y to the third. Good. Let's take a look at a couple more. Let's have you try this. 3x squared y times negative 2x y squared. And then let's have this one. Negative x squared y to the third times 5xyz. And let's give you one more here. 6x squared yz times negative 2xy. Okay, put your video or DVD on pause and work those. Turn it back on and then we'll go over the answers. Okay, let's take a look here. Well, we know here we multiply their coefficients. So we have positive 3, negative 2 gives me negative 6. I have x squared and x, and this is x to the first, gives me x to the third. I have y to the first, and y squared gives me y to the third. So our answer is negative 6, x to the third, y to the third. Take a look here. Now, my coefficient here is 1. We don't write it, but this is 1x squared y to the third. So if I multiply my coefficient negative 1 times 5, that gives me negative 5. Be careful with this. This is a little tricky. Remember, this is a 1 here. Now I have x squared and y to the first. That would give me y to the third. I'm sorry, x to the third. I have y to the third and y to the first. Give me y to the fourth. And I don't have a z here, but I have a z there, so the z goes there. Okay, here, coefficient 6 and negative 2 gives me negative 12. X to the second power, x to the first power gives me x to the third. Y to the first power and y to the first power gives me y to the second power, or y squared, and no z. No z here, but z there, so z goes there. Negative 12, x to the third, y squared, z. Excellent. Excellent. Well, again, that's all there is to the multiplication of a monomial by a monomial. Quick review again. Very simple skill set. We multiply the coefficients. Coefficient is 3 and negative 2. That gives me negative 6. And then we add the exponents. We have x to the second power. We have to realize that this is x to the first, gives me x to the third. We have y to the first power, y to the second power, y to the third power. And in a problem like this, yz times negative 2x squared y squared z. We have to realize that the coefficient here is really 1. We don't write it, but it is 1. So when I'm multiplying the coefficient, 1 times a negative 2 gives me negative 2, and then I add exponents. X to the first and x to the second gives me x to the third, y to the first and y to the second, y to the third, z to the first, z to the second, z to the first, z to the first gives me z to the second, or z squared. Well, that's it for multiplications of monomials and monomials. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you next time.